Hey guys, I'm Eric, and this is Music Theory Breakdown. In this video, we're going to talk about the musical alphabet, which is the most fundamental thing there is to know about music and music theory. I'm going to clarify some musician jargon for you. We're going to talk about sharps and flats and why a piano is laid out like it is. If you're already familiar with the musical alphabet, or if I told you that you needed to watch this video in order to understand some of my other content, I encourage you to stick around and watch this because you might pick up on some things that you missed before, or at the very least, you'll pick up on my teaching style. Like always, we're going to do this with an instrument in hand so you can take the concepts that you're seeing on the screen and turn them into actual music. We're going to keep this video short and to the point. I promise it'll be fun. So, with all of that said, let's get started. Okay guys, let's jump in, let's get started with the musical alphabet. Now this really is the most fundamental thing that there is to know about music and about music theory. This is really just a system of naming the 12 different notes that are in music. And so in order to learn anything else, the major scale and the other stuff we're going to talk about on this channel, you got to know the musical alphabet. Fortunately, it's pretty simple and you're actually probably a little more familiar with this subject than you think. So with that said, first things first, like I said before, we're trying to come up with names. So the purpose of the musical alphabet is to come up with names for the 12 distinct sounds, the 12 different notes that you hear in Western music, okay? And they are these. Okay? And the way this works is if you hit one note, okay, and you go up 12, you're going to hit the same note again, it's just a higher version, okay? So with that said, we need to give these 12 different notes names, and we're going to do that by grouping them into two different categories. So we have 7 what we call natural notes, and then we have 5 accidental notes, okay? And we'll talk about the natural notes first. These are pretty simple. It's a pretty straightforward concept here. So we've got our 7 natural notes, and they are named using the first 7 letters of the alphabet. So A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And to be honest with you, that's all there is to it. Okay, but of course we have our 5 accidentals, and these also need names. And we're going to name these using some very classic musician jargon. We're going to name these using these things called sharps and flats. Okay, and here's how this works. So between A and B, those are our 2 natural notes. Between A and B, there's one note, and it's an accidental. But this one note has 2 different names. You could call this note A sharp, or you could call this note B flat. Okay, it just depends on the musical situation. Now, A sharp, of course, is expressed or written like you see on top there, the A with the little like hashtag looking symbol next to it. And the B is just a regular B with the flat symbol next to it. I think the flat symbol sort of looks like a lowercase b. I don't know. Anyway, having said that, the idea is that so here's our A note, okay, and here's a B note, and in between them is one note, one sound, okay, and that note is either called A sharp or B flat. So one note with 2 names. All right, so you got it. You got the hang of that. So let's take a look at all 12 notes in the musical alphabet. And of course, there in red, those are the 5 accidentals. And notice they each have 2 names. Of course, in black are the 7 natural notes. The other thing you'll notice is that the naming scheme kind of continues that, between C and D, there's one note. You call it C sharp or D flat. So I'm sure you kind of pick up on that just by looking at the chart. The other thing I want to point out is that these 12 letters represent 12 sounds, right? So if I were to play this from A all the way down to G sharp, it would sound exactly like what I played just a second ago. So A sharp. Right? Okay, so these are the 12 names for the 12 notes in music. There's a couple other things I want to point out about this chart while we're here. First of all, that if you, again, were to go from A and count your way all the way up the alphabet to G sharp, once you get there to the end, this alphabet moves in an infinite loop. So you're going to go back to A, okay? Of course, the same is also true in the opposite direction. If you were to count down the alphabet from A, okay, you would end up at A flat / G sharp, G flat, F, E, and go down. Because in music, right, you're not just playing notes in one direction, you're not just playing them. Sometimes we're playing notes that go down as well. So we'll talk more about that in a second. So the other thing that I want to point out about this graph, which you've probably already noticed, especially if you're some kind of neat freak or something like that, is that between B and C and E and F is there's no note. There's no accidental, there's nothing in between them. These notes happen to be right next to each other, and there's a reason for that I will explain at the end of this video. Now, this will trip you up at some point. You're gonna need to memorize it though. There is no note between B and C or E and F. I like to call it the BCE F rule. Really, at the end of the day, it's just a matter of practicing the musical alphabet, and eventually you'll internalize this. In music, since we deal with these letters a lot, people come up with acronyms for everything. And so the acronym I came up with for this video is because elephants are fat, which I'm aware that's a stretch, okay? I'll own that. However, I don't really care what you come up with. You just got to memorize there's no note between B and C or E and F, okay? So you do whatever you want with that. So we also need to talk for just another quick second about accidentals and about how you want to think of them. So we want to think of sharps as something that are raising the pitch of a note. For example, if I were to play a C note, a C sharp is a note that is a higher pitch, okay? If I were to play an A sharp is a note that's higher. It's raising the pitch of a note. That's what a sharp is doing. A flat, of course, is just the opposite. We're thinking that as something that lowers the pitch of a note. So if I've got an E flat is down there. It's a lower note. Here's a D, here's a D flat. Okay, so a flat is lowering the pitch of a note. Now, that's how you just want to think of these things for now. And what I have for you next is a quick exercise that'll help you memorize both the musical alphabet itself, and it'll help reinforce the idea of what sharps and flats do. Okay, so this first chart here, of course, these are our 7 natural notes. And as a reminder, there's no note between B and C, and there's no note between E and F, okay, because elephants are fat, or whatever you came up with. Okay, so that out of the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the 5 accidentals in red. And this time, instead of having both names, they're just going to have the sharp names. And the exercise goes like this. You're going to start at A, and you're going to work your way from left to right, and you're going to say these out loud, maybe write them down, something like that. But you're going to go A sharp, B, C, C sharp. You're going to work your way all the way down to G sharp. Okay, and once you get there, go back to A. So A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. And you want to make sure you make that cross between G sharp and A just to reinforce the infinite loop idea. The other thing I'm going to recommend that you practice this with is your instrument, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to find your A note, okay? And you're just going to count out loud as you play the notes. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, and so on and so forth, okay? The other exercise is the same thing, but you guessed it, we're doing it in the opposite direction, and we're going to use flats this time. So this chart, the 5 accidentals have their flat names instead of their sharp names, and you're going to work your way down. So again, start at A, but then you're going to work your way down to A flat, G, G flat, F, E, E flat, so on and so forth. And the same thing on your instrument, A flat, G, G flat, and work your way all the way down. Again, this is going to reinforce the idea that flats are lowering notes, sharps are raising them. And what it's also going to do is it's going to reinforce just the musical alphabet itself. You're going to remember the BCE F rule pretty quickly if you do this just a few times. Okay, the other thing I want to mention is the flat exercise is probably going to take more practice just because we didn't learn the alphabet as kids backwards. We all learned it forward, and so it'll probably take more time. So I advise spend a little bit more effort on that exercise, but going down in flats. Okay, so one last thing we're going to do in this video. Here is the chart that I showed you at the beginning. This is all 12 notes with both names for the accidentals. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this chart in a different light, and I'm going to show you that you are more familiar with this than you think. So first of all, I'm not going to change the order, okay, but I am going to change where we start this graph. Instead of starting at A, we're going to start the graph at C. The other thing I'm going to do is we're going to fill in the accidentals with black, and then this should start to look like a really familiar instrument. It should look like a piano, because that's exactly what it is. This is how a piano, a keyboard, this is how they're actually laid out. They're very elegant, very simple illustration of the musical alphabet. The other thing you'll notice here is that you have your group of 2 black keys and your group of 3. All of those black keys, those are the accidentals. Okay, so if you look at a real piano, the black keys are the accidentals. And the white notes, those are all the natural ones. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Now, last thing, just because everybody's always curious about this, is why is there no note between B and C or E and F? Okay, there's various reasons, but one of them is as follows. Okay, so imagine if the piano looked like this. White, black, just the whole way down. And remember, the notes aren't written on the piano, they're just there, okay? So now where's middle C, right? Like that's just kind of a hot mess and really visually doesn't make any sense. But fortunately, the creators of Western music decided to give us the grand piano as we know it. And we kind of have these groupings of 2 and then 3 and 2 and 3. Gives a visual separation to the piano. So it just makes it a little bit easier to play. So the last thing I want to tell you and I want to encourage you is I want you to go ahead and download this Nashville Numbers cheat sheet, which is a file that I've created for you. There will be a link in the description below. And what this is this actually has the piano chart that I just showed you a minute ago. It also has some other charts and graphs and stuff from other videos that I've made. This is free to you. I'm just providing this as something to help you practice with. And it's available in both a PDF and in a JPEG. So go ahead and go grab that. And the last thing here is now that you've watched this, you're probably ready for part 2 of this really short little series here on the music fundamentals. And it's on the major scale. So if the most fundamental thing there is to know about music is what we just covered is the musical alphabet, the second most fundamental thing is the major scale, which is, to me, a lot more fun because that's where we actually start making music, right? We've got names for our notes, but now we're going to start using those notes to make cool sounds. Don't forget to like or dislike. Subscribe if you're into this kind of thing. I've got a lot more videos that are in this same vein that I'm going to be expanding on these topics with. And please leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video, if you felt like it was helpful, let me know. Or if you feel like something could be clearer or explained better, I want to know that as well because I'm committed to making the best possible content that I can. And I want to make this a straightforward and simple, very easy to understand concept because I really think music theory is for everybody and I want it to be enjoyable and all that jazz. All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And having said that, I hope to see you in the next one as well.